Hello friends, welcome back to Cosmopolitan Cornbread. So I've been out here working in the garden this morning and it's a little, it's on the struggle bus. We have not had any rain in quite a while. We've been pushing 100 degrees and it's going to be even hotter this coming week. And still no rain on the forecast, and so a lot of things are really struggling. I just got done giving everything out here some nourishment, gave everything some fish emulsion fertilizer, and I'm getting ready to do a nice heavy watering. Even though it's very overcast and it looks like it wants to rain, we have no rain in the forecast. We've got like maybe 1% chance of anything, so that's basically nothing around here. So I'm getting ready to water everything, but first I thought I would go ahead and walk y'all through and show you what we've got going on here right now. So we're starting to get a good bunch of cucumbers. You can see one right down in there, and there's all sorts of little babies everywhere. We have already harvested several cucumbers out of just this little bed right here. I can see another good one down there, right there growing. You can see my little rosemary bush that I stuck in there, and my Mongolian giant sunflower is coming up. Now we're starting to get a little bit of spotting on some of the leaves here, so I'm going to go ahead and spray these with some neem oil this evening. Neem oil helps with blight and pests. Of course, you never want to spray your plants during the day with anything insect related, because that's when all of your bees are active, all of your pollinators. And so you want to do that late at night when everyone is to bed, essentially. Then you don't have to worry too much about getting your pollinators, although you do want to do your very best to avoid getting any sort of bug spray, whether it's traditional or organic, on blossoms or flowers or anything like that, because that's what your pollinators are attracted to. And so you want to try and focus on the foliage and not the flowers. All right, we've got this bed over here. These tomatoes, of all the tomatoes I'm doing, are probably looking the best. They're starting to take off. They're starting to get to the point where I'm working them into the trellis and tying them off as they get big enough to do so, just for some added support. The ones out here, these were smaller ones to begin with. They do need a little bit of pruning. I don't know if that one's going to do anything. Really struggling. That one is too, a little bit. But you know, if we get any tomatoes, I'll be happy. But again, the weather this week is not going to be beneficial at all for the garden, because especially when it comes to tomato plants, these delicate little blossoms that you see on the plants, they may pollinate, but when you get over 90 degrees on average, the blossoms will just drop off, because the plant is going into survival mode. Because it's so hot, it needs to put all of its energy into the plant itself staying alive as opposed to producing fruit. So as long as I can keep these alive through the extreme heat, hopefully when things begin to cool down, we'll get some tomatoes. But I'm not expecting much right now for sure. Although there are a couple little babies. You can see there's one right down there. There's another little one right up here starting. So maybe they'll produce. Now, interestingly enough, the one bed that I was most concerned about is the one that's doing the best, and that was my cinder block bed over here. Everything is looking amazing. We've got beautiful basil. I've got sage, lavender. I mean, everything is doing beautifully. We've got the golden marjoram down here, my queen lime zinnias. Look at these. Aren't they so pretty? And the cosmos are looking gorgeous. Everything is doing fantastic over here. It's pretty astounding. Now I do need to come out here and deadhead my cosmos, of course. I pull all these off. I just throw these down there into the ditch. And then if there's any viable seeds in there, maybe we'll get some random cosmos just spontaneously volunteering. All right, and then down here we've got the eggplant and the roselle. And I will tell you, the eggplant is getting flea beetles. You know, I have talked in the past about how eggplant just seems to be a pest magnet, and that's why I wanted to put it kind of over away from everything else. And this is the first thing besides the beans that I have seen any kind of pest pressure whatsoever. And I have come out here and I've sprayed with some neem oil, but I'm going to have to kind of stay on it because, man, those things just get everywhere. And you can see on the leaves all these little spots of, you know, the evidence of the flea beetle damage. Those things are terrible. Now my yellow squash over here has been doing great, but all of a sudden it is really struggling. I'm having some issues with yellowing in the leaves. I don't know if I've gotten any squash vine borers, but the plants are really struggling. I did go ahead and put my shade cloth back on it, thinking that might be one of the issues, again, because it has been so hot. And so I'm hoping that will help. And like I said, I just fed everything in the garden with some fish emulsion, and so I'm hoping that improves things. So down here, this is the last or most recent bed that I put in. I put in a bed of rhubarb, and you know, I grew rhubarb years ago, but at the time I had gotten really sick and my entire garden just pretty much died that year. It was several years ago. And so I'm hoping to get this bed established, and hopefully we can have some good rhubarb recipes coming in the future. All right, over here we've got some more tomatoes. Down there in the center are my little Kajari melons that I had started. They're doing pretty good, a little yellowing again, but like I said, I've just fed everything, so I'm hoping it'll green up a bit. And after I give everything a good watering and get it all soaked in, hopefully we'll see some improvement. Right down here, the tailgate seedless watermelons that I had planted seem to be trying to do something. They're starting to get a little bit of size on them. I had actually planted a couple sunflowers right there in the center as some shade. I think those were like the little short sunflowers. I forget what they're called. If I can remember what they're called, I'll stick it in the corner down here. These over here were a mix of the Moon and Stars watermelon and some Jubilees. I just kind of put them all here together, and I think I sure did. I just spotted a little baby watermelon right there. Now these plants are still pretty small, so I'm not sure that that's going to produce anything, but I don't know. We'll see. All right, I think this bed here is probably the one that is struggling the most of all the beds. The tomato plants are just really small, really pitiful. I do have some okra coming up over here in the corner that has made an appearance. These tomato plants right here, I'm probably just going to pull these things out because they're just pitiful. My Zucchina rampicante squash plants, again, pitiful. And then I do have some nasturtium that I had planted over here, and a couple of those decided to make an appearance. So I don't know about this bed. For some reason, it's just really struggling. Now this bed of beans over here, I'm not too sure about these. These were supposed to be pole beans, which means they need poles to grow up, which for me, I use a trellis. I planted these. These were one of the first things that I planted here in the garden, and yet they are definitely not poling. They are not climbing. And I'm beginning to wonder if these weren't mislabeled, and instead of them being a pole bean, that they were a bush bean. Because they're just not really going anywhere. They are starting to produce. We are picking beans off of these, but it's just not what I was expecting with these. Over here, my bee balm that is down here is pretty much reaching the end of its season. So this has been just completely covered with pollinators all spring so far, but as you can see, it's reached its end. But I do have some more up by the house in one of my stone beds that is now fully flowered and looking beautiful. The hyssop is still flowering. Very pretty, very delicate little flowers. I'm still waiting for my milkweed to flower, the butterfly weed, to do its thing. All right, and then this bed over here, now these are pole beans. These are the NT half runners that I have grown many, many times. And as you can see, they are just completely coming up the trellis. They are filling up this wall, and over time they'll kind of fill out, get thicker and thicker. So I'm hoping to see more out of these beans than I am the other beans. Nebsy, what are you doing in here? Hi, buddy. Meow. Hi, buddy. You saw the open fence, decided to come for a visit, huh? Alright, my pepper plants are doing so-so. You know, they're just kind of there. They're growing, they're still alive. They're producing some peppers here and there, like this little jalapeno. But I don't know, we'll see. I do have more starts up at the house, and one of my things that I need to do today is pot them up, my little seedlings, so they are ready for the next step. And then hopefully once I get them out here, they'll do pretty well and give me more than this is. All right, and then this last bed over here, we've got some more hyssop in the corner. We've got the tricolor sage. Now this was a variety of purple basil. I don't remember which one it was though. It's definitely not as purple as the other kind that I have. These tomato plants are looking pretty good. These were mortgage lifter tomatoes, and you know, these plants are doing pretty well. I did come through here and tie them off to the trellis for a little bit of support, and as they get bigger and bigger, I'll work them up on this trellis, keep them supported. The splash of cream tomato plants back there though, I don't know. I don't know if it's that variety or if they're just going to struggle like everything else is in the garden this year. You know, everything went in really late and it was already really hot. And so, you know, there's only so much you can do. You know, some people might find a struggling garden to be very frustrating and discouraging. But gardening is a process, and every year, and I've shared this before, I don't know how many times, it is a learning opportunity every single year. Every year there is a challenge that you're going to have to face, and it might be something you've never faced before. You know, it could be a heat wave, it could be disease that you end up having to try and figure out what to do about. It could be a pest that you've never faced before. It could be all sorts of things, but ultimately you're going to benefit by the knowledge that you're going to gain from learning how to deal with that, so that the next time you see something along those lines, you'll know exactly what to do or exactly what not to do. But you know, a few weeks ago I mentioned that even if I don't get anything out of this garden, it is still worth it to me to be able to get out here, be in the fresh air, enjoy having my hands in the dirt, and spending time with the Creator. I just find gardening time to be the most nourishing to the soul. It's not just about feeding the body, but it's about feeding the soul. And I did a video several years ago, and I think I called it something like I didn't realize I would love it this much, or something like that. And I talked about how I never dreamed that I would love gardening as much as I did, and how rewarding it was, and everything else. And it truly is. Even back when we lived in Germany and I had some flower boxes on the balcony and I grew some peppers and some cherry tomatoes, it was so rewarding to be able to just have those little things and say, I grew these. I planted these seeds with my own hands, and I picked these with my own hands, and it's just exciting. I mean, I knew that this year's garden probably wouldn't be the most, mind-blowing, awesome garden just because it's its first year. It's going to take time to get this soil established. And in Alabama, when I built my raised beds, the first year or two, they were okay, but each year I added more compost to it. I enriched the soil. That soil got established with its own ecosystem because soil does have an ecosystem. And so every year the soil, those garden beds just got better and better and better. And so I fully expect to, over time, see improvement in this garden. And I'm looking forward to that. But one of the things that I do want to do before next year's garden, so maybe this fall or something like that, is get a drip line system or some other system like that installed in here. I had a drip line system that I had installed in my big garden in Alabama, and it worked so well for watering the garden and just getting a deep soaking down into the soil, down into where the roots were. And so I plan on doing something like that here. I actually brought all of my drip line stuff with me, but of course these are raised beds, and so I'm going to work out how I can configure the drip line system that I have to work with the raised beds. I've got an idea in my mind, but I just need to sit down with a pen and paper and kind of work it out and figure out exactly how that's going to work. There'll probably be a few more pieces that I need to get to configure it the way it needs to be, but that'll definitely be something that I'll be adding to the garden this year before the next big garden season. But with that, I'm going to get to watering. Like I said, I just fed everything, and now I need to do a nice deep watering, because even though these clouds are teasing us with some rain, I don't expect to get anything. And I'm going to have to stay on the watering this week because the temperatures are going to be pushing 100 degrees and heat indexes will be well over. So I'm going to do what I can to keep everything happy and living, and so hopefully it will keep producing. So that is it for today. Thanks for joining me out here in the garden. My name is Constance from Cosmopolitan Cornbread, and I'll talk to y'all next time.